Hi guys, welcome to Twisted Dice. I'm Aceface and I'm back to give you some more Tyranid Tactics goodness. Today we're going to be looking at the new chapter approved and particularly the Grand Tournament pack. We're going to be focusing on the secondary missions and how you can use them to get some success with your Tyranid army. Before we get started, if you could hit that subscribe button, it helps us out absolutely tons. If you can give us a big thumbs up and drop some comments below and let me know what your favourite secondary missions have been so far and what ones you've been having a lot of success with, then we can all share together. If you do like our content and you want to support us further, you can join our Patreon service. All the details are below. Become part of our Discord and it's just a cool place to hang out. But enough of that, let's jump into these missions. So I've played a few games now and I found more than ever, and this is no real surprise, that missions are what is going to win or lose you the army now. You may be able to get away with just running this perfectly powerful, ridiculous army in the past, and maybe that would have got you by. In 9th edition, missions are king, and making sure that you're building an army and you're picking the right secondaries is going to be the difference between success and failure. So what I've done is I've looked at these missions and we're going to break them down as quickly and as efficiently as we can and talk about what ones are really good to take and what ones maybe you should avoid. This will be useful for all armies, but this is around a Tyranid spin and we'll talk about those units that will help out with these missions. So we're going to start off. Now, if you haven't checked out this book before, the importance is basically you've got different headings that mean different types of missions and you can take one from each of them to have 3 missions. Hopefully that makes sense. But basically we're looking for 3 missions from the different headings. So starting off, we have Battlefield Supremacy. Now, no surprise what these missions are all about. So the first one is engage on all fronts. And this one is you score 2 victory points at the end of your turn if you have one or more units from your army that are wholly within 3 different table quarters. If you have, you can score 3 victory points if you have 1 or more units that are wholly within all of the 4 quarters. So if you played ITC missions, this is your old classic recon. And it's a great mission for Tyranids because we have got lots and lots of ways to do this. So we've got loads of ways to get into all the quarters of the board. Now, what you need to take into account though, is you need to take into account speed and you need to take into account that turns, we only have 5 turns now. These are really important factors because we want to be scoring this straight off the bat. We do not want to be wasting time. So if you don't have a fast Tyranid army, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't have a fast Tyranid army, you're going to be on the back foot because you may not be able to score this first turn. Next up, you've got to think about this is a small board. If it's a small board, your opponent can counter this by making sure that if you've got deep strikers that are going to come in, and we've got loads of them, Raveners, Rippers, Gargoyles, Hive Tyrants, you name it, we've got lots of things, Morlocks that can jump up out of reserve on top of the normal outflanking that everybody can do. We've got loads. But if your opponent plays to that and is going to try and deny you it, on these smaller boards, it's much easier to take that space. So it can be a trap, so watch out for it. If you've got an army that isn't necessarily going to be taking that whole board and you know that you can get small units in the corners, this is a good one. But just bear in mind, if you're going to go for it, you need to be acting straight away. So you've got to guarantee that at least by turn 2, you're getting this, right? So just bear that in mind because you want to be maxing out on these. Primaries are so strongly weighted within this game, you've got to make sure your secondaries, you're getting as many points as you can because you can select the powers with you. So it's a really good mission, but there are some real worries there. So you've got to watch it. You've got to watch it. Line Breaker. Now, Line Breaker score 4 victory points at the end of the turn if you have 2 or more units from your army, excluding aircraft, that are wholly within the deployment zone. So this is a great one. Again, we've got quite good small units that can get in the enemy's deployment zone relatively easy, but you're going to need to look at your opponent. So if you're going against quite an elite opponent that is probably going to push for the middle of the board, Custodes, Death Guard, there's quite a few Grey Knights, these type of armies are going to go for those primaries heavy, and they're going to go to the middle of the board to try and really put the pressure on you. If you know, then you can easily get in the backfield with units of Rippers, you know, with Lictors, with Raveners. Then this is a great one to take, because you can get those points quite quickly and easily just by hiding the small unit in the backfield. So this one I really, really like. But again, you need to look at your opponent's army and check that they haven't got they haven't got those kind of units that are going to stop you getting in the backfield. If they've got a more of a hoardy army, this is not the one to go for. And in fact, these battlefield supremacy ones, try and avoid them if you've got hoardy ones, or if you've got an army that isn't going to have a lot of mechanics to get in the backfield. So just bear in mind that. So domination, score 3 victory points if you control more than half the total number of objective markers on the battlefield at the end of your turn. So this is a great one if you're taking what is probably one of the strongest builds for Tyranids at the moment, which is fastly being known as the Tyranid carpet, which is as many termagants, gargoyles, hormagaunts, basically as you can get on the board, and just swarm up, loads of synapse so you're fearless, probably taking Leviathan. I can do a whole other video on that. Basically, you're taking control of the board. This is a great mission for this. You've got loads of objectives secure and you're very fearless. So this is a good one for this. But if you're not taking that style, if you're taking more monster, if you're taking more well-rounded, just look at your opponent's army and make that decision whether this is something you're likely to go for. If not, stay well clear of it, because you're going to hemorrhage points. And the biggest tip as we get to the end of this section is, this one is obviously all about ball control, and it's all about mobility. Look at your army and look at your opponent's army. Tyranids have got loads of ways to absolutely max this out. But I found quite a lot of times already in my games that my opponent's got much better way to get around the ball quickly. And if I take these, I'm putting the power in their hands, because they're going to be the ones that can deny me these secondaries really easily. So I've avoided them. But if you've got the right army to do it, these are very good ones to take. So then we have no mercy, no respite. These are more the ones that I favour, because I'm more of an aggressive player and I like things that do damage. So thin the ranks is the first one. So select this objective and then keep a tally of kill points. Each time an enemy model is destroyed, add 1 to the tally. Add 10 to the tally instead if the model that was destroyed has wound characteristics of 10 or more. And then if it's a reoccurring, so anyway, we go blah blah blah. But basically, you're just getting points for killing units. And obviously what you want to do is you want to kill lots of units. So, and you want to kill big units and you want to kill monsters. This is a great killing one. So again, look at your opponent. So if your opponent has got a very small elite army, and we don't have the power to deal with them, then this is not one to go for. If they have a unit that's very MSU but very lightweight, they're going to try and get around the board as quickly as can, they're trying to capture those objectives, this is one for you. Really, really good. If you've built an army that's very killy, shooty, they can't hide from you, this is great. I've had a lot of fun with it already, it's a good one. Grind them down is the next one. So you score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if more enemy units and friendly units are destroyed in that battle round. So again, I really, really like this one. I take quite aggressive army with lots of different shooting units, with some pretty good combat units as well. And I'm going to go after those small troops choice units that are potentially taking objectives. So I need to clear them off those key objectives for me anyway, so this often works out well for me. With this though, one of the big tips is don't get too bloodthirsty, because you want to be doing this every turn. If you kill all of their little troop choices first turn, then you're going to find that you can't score this in next turns. So that's a really key thing to think about. You need to be scoring these points every turn until you've maxed that secondary out. So just bear that in mind, Then we've got while we stand, we fight. So if you select this objective, this is a really weird one. Then before the battle, you must identify 3 models in your army, excluding the fortification battle roll that have the highest points value. And basically, You score 5 victory points for each of these models that are on the battlefield at the end of the battle. This one I would stay well clear of if you're Tyranids. It's not a good one for us. We don't have any units that are super resilient. All of our army can be killed and will be killed if it has a target on its head. So don't go for this one on the whole. I would I would not recommend it because our high pointed units, so the things you're generally going to see are probably things like Exocrines, Hive Guard, these type of units that are more expensive, things like Swarmlord, maybe Old One Eye, great units. But actually, if your opponent wants to go after them, they're going to go after them and they'll kill them. They will kill them. 9th edition is still very killy. And if you put a target on someone's head, they're going to kill them. And they'll take all your points away. And these are points you can't afford to lose. So I would stay well clear of that. I don't think we have the type of units that are going to maximise or be useful with that. Then we have Purge the enemy. So this is out and out killing again. So obviously if you're going to go for a very killy army, you're probably going to be looking for no respite, no mercy, no respite, and Purge the enemy is another one. So we've got Titan Hunter. This pretty much goes without saying. If your opponent's got knights and you've got an army and you've got a Tyranid army that has some punch, you're going to go for this. But don't be fooled into it. If you've just got the carpet, if you're just playing the Tyranid carpet and you're against knights, then just play all the ones that are going to give you objectives. And don't worry about the purging the enemy one, because you're not going to have the tools to do it. And you're just wasting a secondary. So don't get fooled into a trap. If you're going against knights, you still need to have the tools to kill the knights. And if you don't, then avoid this and go for your board control. Bring it down is another big one thing. So just look at this is a real simple one for any army, but basically look at your opponent. Do they have lots of vehicles and monsters? There's quite a lot of vehicles knocking around now. Troops, transports are very effective. And there are a fair few monsters as well, because monsters got better. So it's a good one for that. It's also the one to be wary of for yourself when you're building your army, because you will often give this one away. But it's a sacrifice quite often worth taking. Then we have possibly one of the biggest ones to avoid on the whole, unless there's very few circumstances that this really comes into play. But you have cut off the head. Now basically you get points for killing their warlords, but the points go down depending on what turn you kill the warlord. So this one is very easy for your opponent to counter. So if you pick this, they'll keep their warlord well and truly safe. Or they'll even keep them off the board if they can. So you're not going to get near them. And we don't have a lot of ways to snipe, particularly. You can do things with spore mines. You know, there's a few crafty stuff we can do. But it's on the whole very hard for us to snipe. So it's hard for us to get our characters anyway. And they're just going to make them, they will just keep them away. So your only times you're really going to go for that if they've got a big monster that's their warlord, that you know is going to be in play because he's a key part of their army that they're not going to want to hold off the battlefield, or if they've got knights, again, because knight warlord, he's going to be on the board. But again, the same before, if he's not killable, then don't go for it. Okay. Then we have Assassinate. So Assassinate is your old headhunter. So this is basically killing characters. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round for each character model that is destroyed. Again, we don't really have access to snipers, so just be wary with this one. You just need to make sure, 1, they've got lots of characters. 2, make sure their characters are aggressive. So the big one for this, if you're going against orcs, generally their characters are very aggressive. They're going to come at you. Same with some other factions as well. But things like Guard, you know, things like even like Space Marines, they might have one character that comes at you. Quite a lot of the time, the others are buffing characters that will sit behind things that you'll find it quite hard to get to. So this one can be good, but you really need to be aware, because we don't necessarily have the tools to get to characters easy. Some of the other armies can get to characters a lot easier than us. And also, sometimes we just don't want to play that game, because we're not always, generally you're going to kill a character quite often in combat because you're struggling to get them with shooting if they're well positioned. We're not always the best in combat. Scary and sad, but we're not always. We can be, but we're not always the best, so one to be wary of. Then we have shadow operations. So we've got raise the banner high. So this is very similar to your old engineers, but with some difference. So basically this one, raise the banner. So it's an action, which basically means I can't do anything else really. So one or more infantry unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase. Each unit from your army that starts to perform this action must be in range of a different objective marker, so you can't do it on the same one. And the unit can't do any actions towards your enemy unit, yada yada. And basically, you score a victory point then in your command phase for every one of these that you've held and that you've activated, and they've basically got to take you off them. So this one's actually works really well for us. Particularly if you've got lots of things that are going to put pressure on your opponent, and you've managed to swamp through the objectives and you've got these banners behind. Quite often it might take your opponent quite a long time to clear through to get to your banners. So this one can work quite well, but be wary, because some armies you just won't get to them very easily, and you really want to be putting banners up on at least 3. 2's possible to still get points that you really want, but 3's probably more beneficial for you. So you need to bear that in mind. And you're not going to be attacking, so it can be a trick one, but it can be powerful as well. Then we've got investigate sites. So this one is 1 infantry unit excluding characters for your army. Can start to perform this action in the movement phase if they're within 6 inches of the centre of the battlefield. So this is the old king of the hill. Basically, you can't have any other opponent. You can't have any opponents there, and you get 3 victory points basically each turn. This one's really quite good again for us, because where we want to be with a kind of more swarmy army is in the middle. So if you build your army for a sort of swarmy feel to it, then this is really good. If you're going more balanced or heavy monsters, this one doesn't work so well for you, because you won't likely to win the middle of the table. And also just be wary of armies that are particularly built to get to the middle of the table and take that control, because you also won't score it then. So just be wary. We do have certain builds that will do this very well, but a lot of our builds won't as well. So again, just think, and I'm going to go through builds in another video. Okay, so then we've got deploy Scramblers. So deploy Scramblers, 1 infantry unit excluding characters from your army that can perform this at the end of the movement phase if they're wholly within your deployment zone. Sorry, let me say that again. So 1 infantry unit excluding characters from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase if it is wholly within your deployment zone, wholly within your opponent's deployment zone, or more than 6 inches from either deployment zones. This action is completed at the end of your turn. So this is basically, again, where is it? I missed the beginning bit. So score 10 victory points at the end of the battle if you've successfully completed the following actions 3 times. So basically, you've got to hold certain points of the board. You've got to do them in more than one place, and you've got to do it 3 times. It's quite a good one again. It's definitely something that we can look at. Just need to look at your builds. Teleport Homer. So this is 1 infantry unit from your army. Can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase if they're wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. This action is completed at the end of your next command phase, provided the unit attempting it is still wholly within your enemy's deployment zone. And this is 4 victory points when you've completed it. So this one's I would say is not necessarily great for us. Again, we don't have really resilient units, and if you've got specific units that are going out for this objective, your opponent will pinpoint them and kill them. So, you know, just be wary of this, because again, it's an offensive mission. We're going to get into their deployment zone, but you know, they can target you and they can kill you. So I don't like that one. I think that's one, again, probably to avoid. And then we have the psychic heavy ones. So we have the Warpcraft. So we have Arbor the Witch. You You can't select this secondary objective if your army includes psyker units. So straight away, I just wouldn't take it. So I'll tell you what, guys, I'm just not going to read on, because I think if you've taken no psykers in your Tyranid army, you've made a mistake, because our best HQs on the whole are going to be psykers, which are Neurophropes and Hive Tyrants and the Swarmlord. You're just not going to not have psykers in your army. I think you've made a mistake if you've not got psykers in your army. Quite often they are the people that hold the synapse. So just don't take it. Forget about it. Don't even think about it. Then we have mental interrogation, which I really like, but you have to be wary because I did this wrong. So basically, mental interrogation is basically a psychic power that you cast on an enemy character within 18 inches. And it has only got a warp charge of 4, so it's super easy to cast, and you get 3 points each time you do it. So again, just bear in mind, is your opponent coming at you? Are they aggressive? Are those psykers wanting to buff things and are quite happy to stay away from you? Or do they want to get into trouble and do they want to cause issues? If they do, then these are the guys that you want to be using. You want to be taking this one because it's going to be really useful. If they're not coming at you, don't take it because you're not going to score it. Also, bear in mind, if you've got key psychic powers that you need to get off, this cancels everything. You can only cast this one, which is what I got wrong. So you need to bear that in mind. So if your key psyker needs to buff a unit, then maybe this is not the one you take. But it's really good, and Tyranids do it very well. We have lots of psykers, so I really like this. Then we have Psychic Ritual. So this one's score 15 points at the end of the battle. If any unit from your army successfully completes the following psychic action 3 times during the battle. So it's Warp Charge 3. One psychic character from your army can attempt to perform this psychic action in the psychic phase if they are within 6 inches of the centre of the battlefield. This one's really quite good for us. If you've got a big horde of guys that are coming up, your characters are going to support them. If you can push your opponent off the middle of the board, this is doable. But again, you've just got to bear in mind that you've got to do this 3 times. Your opponent knows you've got to do this 3 times. They will throw everything at you, the kitchen sink, to avoid this. Any secondary you take that your opponent has a lot of control, whether you succeed or fail, is one you need to really in your mind go, am I definitely going to get this? Because if you're not definitely going to get it, then probably look at other ones first. And this is a last gasp. This is your 3rd one. And then you have Pierce the Veil. So this is score 8 victory points at the end of the battlefield if 1 or more unit from your army successfully completes the following psychic action 2 or more times during the battle, or 15 points at the end of the battle. At the end of the battle, if 1 or more units from your army successfully completes this psychic action 4 times. And what do you have to do? So it's a warp charge of 4, and it's 1 psychic character unit from your army can attempt to perform this psychic action during a psychic phase if they are within 6 inches of the opponent's battlefield edge, or more than 6 inches from an enemy model. This one is so difficult to do, guys. You know, like, yes, we've got some key units like a Flying Hive Tyrant, like a Swarmlord, but you're asking quite a lot for them to be that dominant in their opponent's area to be able to succeed in that. This one for me is just too hard, even with our psykers, to be able to do successfully. And I don't think there's a lot of armies that will, but, yeah, maybe Grey Knights. But I would say no. Avoid this one. Avoid this one. And that wraps up the missions. So we're at 23 minutes now. So we're going to wrap this up, guys. But hopefully that's kind of been useful for you. So look, the important thing here, guys, is that you look at your build. Because your build will be very important to what works for you. But the key factors for me around Tyranids is we are not a particularly resilient army within the individual units. We are a resilient force because we can play with the numbers, and we can play with numbers either of big monsters or little guys, and we can throw quite a lot of stuff on the board. So we can take a lot of objectives, we can kill a lot of stuff, and we can do a lot of stuff. But no one unit, and this is of the hive mind way, no one unit is really super strong, and no one unit is not going to get annihilated if your opponent really wants to go after them. So just be wary of any mission that means one unit is pinpointed. That's the first thing. And secondly, any aggressive ball control objective, just make sure before you go, yes, I can take that, I'm Tyranids, I've got loads of guys. Look at your opponent and make sure you've got the tools to do it. But what I will say is we can do these objectives very well. In fact, we can do these objectives better than a lot of other armies. So there's a lot of play in here, and these will be really, really good for us. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, guys. Please put your comments down below. Let us know what you think. Make sure you have liked and commented and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be back with some more Tyranid Tactics real soon. Bye for now.